Dr. Kenzo Tenma is a Japanese surgeon who works at a hospital in Dusseldorf, Germany. His life is seemingly perfect. He is in line for a high position at the hospital he works for, and is even engaged to the daughter of the hospital director. But all of that changes when he decides to perform a life-saving surgery on a young, small child, rather than a rich hospital donor. Everything after this has his life falling apart around him, even having him implicated in a string of murders. While on the run, these events and many other horrifying things seem to be orchestrated by the very boy he saved, who is now a mastermind serial killer named Johann Liebert. Naoki Urasawa's masterpiece Monster focuses on many implications, the consequences of your actions, and subsequently the choices that we make that determine life, death, and betrayal and caring loyalty. Throughout the story, we experience things not just from Kenzo's eyes, but from several other characters, and presents us with a question that lingers throughout the story. Can the sins of the past dictate the present? The foundation of Kenzo's life, and subsequently who he is as an individual, all come down to his moral foundation. What he sees as good, bad, and in between. As a doctor, he constantly has to deal with hard choices, as all surgeons have to. One small mistake could mean the difference between life and death, and that balance of morality also plays a factor into his own life. As an example, his fiancée Eva Heinemann, although seemingly attracted to Kenzo, in reality sees no real value in him as a person until after the events that take place. She starts seeing the true goodness and rarity of what he can be. That foundation of building of principles is essentially the building blocks in which life's past and present collide. Without the foundation, we can't build towards a better self, a better choice that we present to each other. Without a strong foundation, there's nothing to build upon. As Kenzo starts to lose everything that he holds dear, not just positions or property, money, but people that he cares about, he's often reminded of events that involve medical practice. Without those hard decisions, people's lives hang in the balance. And as a surgeon, Kenzo has to constantly deal with the implications of preventing a disaster. That preventing is just as important as deciding. These same implications also fall on other characters. He befriends a young boy named Dieter, who is very similar to how Johann's upbringing was. The difference is that Dieter has a positive influence in his life and subsequently can make more positive choices. The same can be said about Johann's own twin sister. She was put on a positive path of life, whereas Johann has been in a never-ending cycle of darkness. These pathways that we can put ourselves on aren't just something that we can look towards as a positive, but more a thing that can prevent a future disaster from happening. With each choice, there's always presented a consequence of the choice, for better or worse. Take Kenzo's former fiancée, Eva Heinemann, for example. After she breaks off with Tenma, her father is killed. She loses her status in society. She goes through several marriages and divorces, and falls back into alcoholism, begging Kenzo to take her back and seemingly trying to rekindle a relationship that they previously had. But Kenzo has moved on, having been guarded from all the experiences he has at this point. But she is unable to move forward and doesn't see why people can't fall backwards with her. The same consequences fall upon Johann, who seemingly plays the mastermind in all of the orchestration of negatives around him, and seemingly with no real goal in mind, which makes him absolutely terrifying. Monster isn't just the story of Kenzo and Johann, though. Throughout, there are other characters that experience different events and different parallels and echoes about each other. One of them is Inspector Lunge. His main goal is to figure out what happened, why everything happened. What started his conquest was originally finding out who murdered the original 3 people in the hospital and point the blame at Tenma, who he does believe has something to do with the murders, but doesn't quite understand why. And as he digs deeper, we, the audience, also experience the information flux throughout his eyes. Another character is a seemingly kind, happy man named Wolfgang Grimmer, who will frequently have blackouts and forget everything that happens, but everyone around him will be dead. He was also in the same program as Johann, and seemingly that monster is still within him, just as it is in Johann. However, Johann does not run from it, Johann embraces it. These parallels amongst each other don't just seemingly happen out of nowhere. They all ripple one after the other, like a game of chess or a game of tennis. One reflects upon the other, and vice versa, creating a negative and positive charge that each can reflect upon, and each can have different consequences. In some regards, we can experience things and we can also reflect on them differently. A perfect example of this is Anna Liebert, Johann's twin sister. She experienced everything in a sense of childhood, from the suffering, the mental torture, anguish, and subsequent teachings that they both experienced that fractured their minds. But the difference is that Anna became a better person by a combination of suppression and overall positive love reinforcing her moral goodness. Johann, on the opposite way, took those as a fuel to implicate different things and different choices that would consequently hurt everyone around him. He sees himself as more of a person with a magnifying glass and everyone else as ants, killing things indiscriminately as long as he gains some positive out of it. That positive isn't financial gain or endorphin rush. It's more a matter of self-satisfaction. It's not just what he does, it's not just how he does it. It's the seemingly lack of reason behind it that makes him so terrifying. And all of this eventually culminates between him and Kenzo, both of them experiencing horrors, seeing things, seeing the world in both a positive and negative light, and it shaping the foundation and leaving them both different than how they were. But their experiences are both just as equally valid. So, can the sins of the past dictate the present? Often in cases involving serial killers, many see parallels of a corrupt childhood, horrible things that happen to them early in life that dictate who they become later. But in that same regard, that doesn't necessarily mean they will become them. The experiences in which we each face, for better or worse, are foundationally set. The past cannot be altered. It is affixed to our own psyche's experiences and can often sway our own opinion of what we decide to do. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we can't learn from those experiences. We can't change who we are. We can't decide to be better than we were before. With each choice, there's always a consequence, for better or worse. Ultimately, it really just comes down to what we morally, principally, and honestly decide. You can let your past dictate yourself, or you can let your past just be the past. There is no set guideline for everyone's life. Each individual has to experience it for themselves and choose for themselves. But regardless of that, those sins never really go away. But those sins also don't have to be who you are as an individual. But in the end, these aren't answers, they're hypotheticals.